How did this Brexit row between the UK and France get to the risky showdown point, where both countries are on the brink of a full-on trade blockade? In a word, Macron. He alone is the pathetic, thumb-sucking French president who took Britain's exit from the European Union personally and has been using his position as France's leader to devise every trick in the book to hamper Britain and its economy, to, in the words of his Prime Minister, teach the UK a lesson about the costs of leaving the EU project. But is this really the case? Can Macron carry on this farcical hijacking of EU rules and block French ports to UK trucks just so to make a stand against a handful of French fishermen's licenses? And, perhaps more importantly, is the EU itself behind Macron, or does it see the bigger picture? Interestingly, the view from some analysts that Macron is increasingly isolated in Brussels is true. Indeed, just a few months into his own presidency, Macron used to make speeches and publish his own letters in the UK press as though he was speaking on behalf of the project itself, almost like he was the real leader and decision-maker of its destiny. But no more. The European Commission boss, a German national, has seen that Macron probably sees the exit of Angela Merkel as an opportunity to take over as the European Union's leading nation and for Macron to be the figurehead which stands tall as its de facto leader. Others too in the EU mix aren't happy about the fishing row and how Macron is using his position to attack the UK, in a poorly veiled stunt to garner more votes from French fishermen running up to the French presidential elections in April of 2022. Indeed, not only has Macron not received support from the EU over the row, but a number of EU member states collectively signed a letter recently signaling that they wanted a more grown-up approach to resolving the dispute. Clearly, there is an anti-Macron dynamism both in Brussels and at EU member state level as a general feeling that France's leader is getting out of control and sees himself as the new leader of the EU is not at all welcome. Macron is panicking. With just 6 months to go to the presidential elections, he's far from out of the woods and one has to question whether the French people see through his craven vote-grabbing stunt and his delusional views about himself and where France sees itself these days on the world stage. France's domestic problems are linked to being an EU member state and in the euro, and its woes which spill out onto the streets with daily strikes and protests are a symptom of both its straitjacket relationship it has with the EU and its own bloated, out-of-date industry which can't compete with Asia and the US. This is the main reason why Macron's acerbic attitude to everything the UK says and does, as if the French people start to mull over how the UK is doing now out of the EU, then the Eurosceptic movement in France will grow exponentially and anti-EU figures like Le Pen will acquire a new élan running up to the polls. If France heads towards an EU referendum, then the rest of the EU knows that its days are numbered as the project that we know today. A meltdown will start in Brussels and the EU will rush to rebrand itself as a slimmed-down version with lighter institutions, less power, less budget and all fantasies about a foreign policy, with perhaps an EU army scrapped entirely. The EU project simply cannot afford France to wobble and a new momentum similar to what happened in the UK a decade ago, to be reborn there. And this is really at the heart of what the EU itself and EU leaders are worried about. Is this weak, cowardly, self-obsessed weasel running the Republic actually doing more harm than good with his own personal campaign to try and destroy the UK? France, contrary to what you might think of a founding member of the EU itself, has plenty of enemies within the European Union, countries that miss the UK's presence in Brussels which acted as a counter to Paris and Berlin's dominance. If a trade blockade were to start and British trucks were blocked from entering France's ports, with the inevitable ban on French goods in UK supermarkets, which would be the reaction of British people, it wouldn't be such a bad thing for the UK, or the EU project. Many of these other EU countries would allow their ports to be used for the British trucks as a signal to Macron that he cannot carry on with this self-serving baloney, which doesn't even have the support of French businesses. If this were to happen, then France itself would find itself isolated from the Brussels pack, as the EU giants take a more sober view to dealing with Britain, post-Brexit, and building a strong trading partnership, which even the die-hard federalists in Brussels know is the only way forward. The problem is that the EU itself is in a wrangle over Macron. It knows that if he fails to secure a second term, that he will almost certainly look to the EU itself for a top job in Brussels, probably EU Commission President or EU Council President when these posts become available in 2024. We can assume from the lack of support to his ruse, that the EU elite does not want him on the Brussels scene. In the meantime, Boris Johnson may well have his Churchillian moment all over again as it becomes clear that Britain's old ally is trying to harm British interests and needs to be taught a lesson. However, retaliating on any level, he will understand, will only feed the Macron political machine. Macron is determined to have this war with the UK to secure a second term in office, so is primed to do his theatrical stunt for the common man there. But is anyone buying this murd? Martin Jay is an award-winning British journalist currently based in Morocco.